I said yesterday that Reggie Theus, who is a big name, and he should be able to recruit some people to come down and put money. One people said, well, Ed Reed had all these millionaires lined up, but how about, okay, is the school still there, right?
Absolutely.
So, because Ed there, he's not there. You can't support the school who needs your support. What's up with that? Anyway, Reggie Theus came out and kind of gave us an insight to what's been going on at Bethune-Cookman. He's the athletic director. Let's take a listen.
It's a tough, Vaughn, is that when people make accusations, that people have to understand that just because you say something doesn't make it true. Like, just let me give you an example of our administration. We went through 2 hurricanes within a month of each other. Our football team was on the road the entire time. Our administration basically charged me with just make sure they're safe, make sure they're well taken care of, and make sure they're safe. They were on the road for a month. You know how expensive that is?
Yeah, very.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for our administration, our board of trustees, that wouldn't have happened. So, when you start to say that our administration doesn't care about these kids, you are dead wrong. You are dead wrong.
And so Ed Reed that's going off the handle, not even knowing what's going on.
Yeah, well, actually, what Theus is saying is that he did know the conditions.
Really?
And that's why, it was so appalling.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's why it was so appalling. He did know the conditions. He said Reggie Theus went on talking about this interview to reiterate that Reed was very familiar with the conditions prior to his original rant.
So what he's trying to do, I'm still trying to get.
Well, he wasn't trying to be part of the solution. I can tell you that.
No.
Good point.
No.
I can tell you that. If there's one thing we can take out of all of that, if seeing that you did know, there's no way you thought what you were doing was going to be
right. So
was going to be helpful.
Let me get this right. So I'm gonna pay you a salary to come be coach of my team. You already knew what the conditions were, and you can still go out there and say just crazy stuff. I mean, again, we talked about it many times in the last few days. We're not saying what he said wasn't true, but how he said it was just
and who he said
detrimental.
It to.
And
he should have been saying it to the people
them.
that could create the change.
Right.
Yeah,
there you go.
We talked about this. Well, matter of fact, we were downtown last night. We talked about this a lot. And it's just, I get it. Nobody's burying their head in the sand saying that, HBCUs don't have, issues here and there. But there are so many things that could have been done using his platform if he really wanted to be a part of the solution, right? Like, if he really wanted to say this, and I said this many times last night, I said it again today. All you really had to do, honestly, state the condition. Say, I can't believe it's like this, whether you did or not, right? Can't believe that we out here, we're trying to do this. I'm not even on the contract that I'm out here trying to, get our team together, do what we can to help. But you know what? When I played at University of Miami, there's no way this would have ever happened. Other institutions in this state that probably was affected by the same hurricane, there's no way that their school is in the same state of repair. And some people said, I'm sure they got money. I'm sure they received money for that, just like the other schools. I said, you know what? And I wish they could have that conversation because I'm almost positive that the amount of money they receive pales in comparison to the amount of money those other schools receive.
Sure. Absolutely.
So push the conversation up. Push the conversation up because you're not helping anybody, especially those young student athletes, by riding around on a golf cart cussing about the fact that you gotta pick up trash.
Right.
And in fact, they had trash in his office or something like that. He said,
right.
Yeah.
Adjust the narrative in a positive way. This is what's here. But now I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah,
and I'm going to make a change.
I'm gonna
this
make a
won't
change.
happen again. Those kinds of things.
Stay tuned.
Right.
That kind of thing. Yeah, and that gets you going, right?
And I got a feeling the reason he probably really didn't get the job, profanity aside, is the fact that if he did know, and that's the avenue he took was to blame everybody that's trying to come together to figure out what we can do.
Right, and he went
the reason that
he went directly at the board of trustees.
Right. So that's probably really.
But you gonna come at me?
You come at the people that are high.
But you gonna call me out and say those things about me? Then you gonna try to say this?
And maybe they haven't done all they could have done. I don't know. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they could have done more. from a trustee perspective or from a board perspective.
I just think it's extremely unfortunate across the board because I think Ed Reed probably could have been that guy. But you know, Matt, I'm not sure.
I think he showed me enough to say.
Yeah, I agree to say I didn't change my mind about him a little bit because he great football player, Hall of Famer, all that stuff. Great guy, probably, but not. I don't necessarily don't think he could be a leader of men in this situation that's required in Bethune.
Right.
He can't do that.
Yeah, he's not. And then, like the video with Deion after the fact, and somebody alluding to Deion really wanted me to come take his spot at Jackson State, but I did. I mean, all of that. It's like, okay, now you're just proving the point that what Deion was doing was really, really special, and Deion is somewhat of a one of a kind because he played it correctly in a lot of situations. Yeah. Deion would have come out and did the same thing. You remember the conversation we had about students not getting their refund checks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. BEOG.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. The reason I know this is because, when I was in school, we protest. We want our BOG. Ain't I? Yeah. We went down to the administration office, Patton Hall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because what Ed was doing, our name was on there.
Right.
To get that refund.
Hey, let me hold it for a minute.
but they were keeping the doggone money.
You'll get it eventually.
We were like, we want our BOG.
And you were in the number.
Collins Pettaway, who's a judge right now in Alabama, down in Selma.
He's a judge.
He led the protest.
He was walking in his calling then.
No, but I just thought about this. But Max, right? They were holding me. We're gonna get our refunds.
It just takes us a while to process.
Hold up, 20 years?
Wow. That's good.
They've been doing it for 20 years.
It takes us a while to process.
We want our BOG.
Like, let me make sure I understand this. So you get my money in August. You give me my money for Thanksgiving? Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that process.
Right.
Let's talk about that. But
how long does it
right.
take?
And and the reason, like when Deion called it out, because of course the legislature and the state of Mississippi and some federal, I guess somewhere in there, everybody was pointing fingers.
Mm-hmm.
The school said, "Hey, they're sending it late. That's why we're giving it to you late."
See, it's school lies.
So Deion said, "That's interesting." He says, "So he said, forget it. I tell you, we get to the bottom of all of it. I don't understand why it's late. Now y'all figure it out."
Wow.
Guess what? We not late no more. Now I don't know who fixed what, but it's not late anymore.
Not late anymore.
But so that's what I'm saying. It's just because no one's naive. That's what gets me. A lot of people think that when we respond to stuff about Ed and others, they're like, "Oh, you don't know how it works." People should know. I said, no one's naive. We get it. We understand. We understand. There are a lot of things that go on at historically black colleges and institutions, universities. There's a lot of things that go on.
So I just Googled it. So the BOG came out in 1972. and the first time they even thought about giving us some money to the students was like in the 1980s.
And they still be taking their time now.
They be taking their time now. Talking about, wow. we ain't got a deposit yet. Man, you better give me my money. Anyway.
Co-host Pringley says Ed can't cuss everyone out and then try to get a contract.
Yeah, it was.
You just can't do it publicly.
Right. It was unprofessional. And that's his whole thing. And we talked about it, keeping it real and all that, the culture and all that stuff. Man, you better.
Well, Stephen
the
A. told us
culture of foolishness.
Hold up.
Stephen A. told us to our face.
Yeah, he said, this is the first day we was on the air. He said, you can be.
You said right over there.
Yeah, he's right. He said, keeping it real, you can be really, really unemployed too. You can be really, really stupid and really, really unemployed.
He said, I like you fellas. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, it's about keeping it real.
Nice.